often the expectation is just pictures and words, right? We think in pictures, but we speak in words. We both say, hey, I need some help around here. And it's that extra step of saying, hey, what's your picture of this look like? What's your picture of bedtime routine? What does that look like to you? And what does changing a diaper, it's going that extra step. It's not Hollywood, it's not sexy, but it's reality and it's intentionality.
Welcome to Amplify with Jess Ekstrom, a show designed to help women get out of their head and into their zone of influence. So I was standing backstage at John Maxwell's event that I spoke at, and I saw John Delony, who I followed for years on TikTok. And it just so happened that my husband was with me at this event, which was perfect because John speaks about relationships and gives relationship advice. And so I was so excited to finally meet him in person and ask him some questions about my relationship that we've been dying to ask. So little did we know, Jake and I got couples therapy right before I was about to go up on stage and speak to 15,000 people.
I remember telling you, what my husband and I had been experiencing. I was pregnant with my now son, Jack. Ellie was a little over a year. And I'm like, 90% of our conversations are transactional. Like, who's picking up daycare? What, who pooped today? Like, what's going on? And we don't have any time for ourselves. So we're going to start couples therapy to help us reconnect and all these things. And you gave me the most advice that I would have never thought you would give. Do you remember what you said to me?
I don't. I hope
you
it
were
wasn't terrible.
No, it was almost exactly what I needed to hear. You were like, well, what if this season is just not the season where you two thrive as a couple? Like, you're about to have another kid. What if you can just loosen your grip on being the star, thriving, flirting, dating couple right now and know that it'll come back? And I'll tell you, you're good at what you do because it worked. I feel like we loosened our grip a little bit on the expectation of being like we were pre-kids. Mm-hmm. And that helped us just kind of relax and know that we're still in the same orbit. We're going to be there for each other. Yeah. But it's just not the season to be candlelit dinner and rose petals, all around.
No, yeah, it's I don't know how to tell you this, but you have actual doo-doo on your shirt, from a human. It's like grabbing your shirt, right? It's so, but I think, yeah, we've turned every, especially when it comes to romantic and sexual encounters in a marriage, we've turned every interaction, it has to be the Super Bowl.
Right.
And in a weird way, it has to be better than it was the other day. And so you can have this big romantic buildup and this like the wallpaper is peeling off the bathroom, your bedroom.
Yeah.
And then there's just a quick encounter 2 days later and everybody leaves thinking something's wrong. What happened? What was this? And it's just so much pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And it also, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was a lot of our listeners are pressing the freaking gas on their career. And a lot of them are women, whether they're speakers, authors, corporate job. A lot of the women who listen to this podcast have big career aspirations. Traditionally, that wasn't how marriage worked. It was the man is going to go out to work. The woman is going to take care of the home, raise the kids. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of people still do that, which is why I think, Harrison Butker's speech a few months back really sparked, for better or worse, a conversation. But, I'm curious, from your point of view and your lens into relationships, how have you seen women who have career aspirations and maybe either the dads are staying at home or they're working as well? How has that affected the evolution of marriage and relationships?
Man. Okay. Can I take a big loop around the block and answer that in a kind of a convoluted way?
Yeah.
I'm going to be more raw with you. I consider you a friend. I'm going to be more raw with you than I would just a strange. I'm going to tell you something I haven't talked about on podcast. And I'm wrestling with it right now. I grew up, my dad was a policeman, and halfway through my life, he quit that job and became a minister. And then he got back into police work, and now he's in his 70s. My wife, her parents were school teachers. Okay. So we come from not a lot. And the last 36 months, and this is just me putting it out there. I, I had 2 books go number 1. I travel all over the country, and I've got a show that's in the top 10. Like, everything exploded. And financially, a cop's kid and a teacher's kid, our lives are transformed. Right now, it will all go away. I know I'll get fired in a similar supernova. I know that, right? But here's the haunting thing that I'm still wrestling with in real time. I don't know where this story came from, but I thought all of this was going to feel different. I thought it was going to fix my marriage where there were still holes. And I thought the right amount of money, out of the blue, my dad was finally going to call me and be like, "Hey, I didn't really told you this, but I'm really proud of you." Right? I know he's proud of me, and he tells me in all of his silent Texas cop kind of ways, but I didn't realize how many people I had cast in a movie they didn't even know they were in, and I spent most of my life mad that they didn't know the lines that I wanted them to say. And I thought all of this number 1 book and getting this. I mean, you and I were backstage at a Maxwell conference, and Deion Sanders walked. Like, really, really, like.
Yeah.
And then Dr.
Yeah.
J walks. Like, what are we doing?
Right? What is our life? What
Wasn't
is
even
life?
real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yet, I still had to go to the bathroom before I caught my flight back home so that I could, right? Like, everything just keeps going. And so to a group of men, a group of women who are sitting there thinking, okay, I want to do this thing. I'm going to press into this thing. What is becoming clear, and I've been teaching on this forever. I taught my grad students this. I've been traveling the country telling business leaders this. And now I'm having to look in the mirror. It won't feel like you think it's going to feel, because you will go with you, whatever happens. More resources, amazing. Like, here's the truth. My kids are in different schools this year, and they are both thriving in a way that I didn't know possible. That's real. And it would be a lie for me to say it's not. They are privileged beyond measure right now. And every night I'm haunted by the fact that if they have to go back to the other schools, that somehow I'll have left. Right. So now it's just this different weight. So I say all that to then circle back to the traditional, and again, this is over gendered and over traditional, the traditional emotional anchor to a home, that those feelings, it's going to feel a certain way when we get there. What I've been seeing over the last 10 years, especially with women behind closed doors who have quote unquote made it, they graduated law school, they made partner, they are finally become the head of the physicians group that they work with, whatever, is this eye rolly. I gave up my 20s and 30s for this. And almost this hilarious, you guys are idiots. This is what y'all do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I missed out on. And so that's not true for everybody. And I know there are people who are super happy and all wonderful. Everybody's different. But I think it's important for everybody to just be honest about, what do you think is going to be different if the thing that you are scratching and clawing and missing soccer games and having less romantic and sexual encounters with your husband or wife, like, if you're missing these things, what do you think what's going to be the ROI on that? And the question that has continued to resonate with is, for what? Like, for what? What are we doing all this for? What? And so then the couples I'm seeing be successful in what I would say non-traditional roles, like you're asking, are the ones who are able to kind of opt out of the industrial guilt complex. And I think women, there's no way for a professional woman to win. I watched my wife go from a really celebrated public school teacher to a nationally recognized college professor and researcher to, hey, miss, to stay-at-home mom. And every step of the way, it was, why aren't you at home? I mean, really? And then, why are you staying at home? You have this, and why aren't you doing that? You're a teacher. There was never a place to win, ever. And then husbands who want to stay at home or want to be more present, or God help them if they ask for paternal leave because they want to be a part of the first couple of weeks or month of a newborn. They get laughed at, they get made fun of. Like, I'll just fire. Like, so it's you know what I mean? So you have to unplug from the guilt complex, and you and your spouse have to sit together and say, how do we want this house to feel when we both get up every day? And what must be true? What must we do for that to work out? And that's going to be different for every couple. It's the intentionality that matters.
and what is enough, and
That's the question I've been asking all over the country. Like, what's enough? And
what's enough.
It just keeps moving. It just keeps moving.
Yeah. The book that I have, maybe if I put it out there here, it'll make me actually finish writing it. But the working title I have is called Making It Without Losing It. And it's what is enough, and what is the level of I feel good and free in my career that also is keeping my feet on the ground wherever it is that I want to be. Because the other part of that, John, is and this is what kind of sparked something in Harrison Butker's speech. And on your podcast, you have women calling in that's I found texts from my husband that was to a mistress, or you've heard the gamut.
Right.
And so there's a part of me that's yeah, chasing after a professional career, you don't want to miss the soccer games. You don't want your kids to come home to an empty house from the bus. I get that. But then there's also the part of it's well, okay, then I'm just supposed to wait and trust that my spouse is going to take care of me while have a 20-year gap in my resume. That's the other part of it that is kind of a tougher pill to swallow. Is I've seen plenty of women that have been blindsided by their spouse, and they're now having to figure out, well, what skills do I have that I can now go make a living?
And I have sat on the opposite side, and I've heard that my whole career, and I've sat on the opposite side, which is men saying, dude, I'm never enough. There's not an amount I can earn. There's not a thing I can do. She doesn't. Here's I think Terrence Real says this the best. Terry Real. Women want to know why their men won't change, and men want to know, why don't you like me? And those are just haunting questions. And so men go to work. Here's a story from my life. Here's two stories. Number one, I am a academic nerd in higher ed, which is my wife's a professor. I'm a professor and dean of students. I am hip. I am woke as woke could be 15 years ago, right? Or about 15 years ago. I know how to be the cool, hip, modern male. We have a baby after 4 years of trying, 3.5 years of trying, not being able to. Here we go. Here, my Hank shows up. I had no idea, none, that a baby poops 116 times a day. I thought they went once, like regular people.
No.
And here's the ecosystem. Nobody lets teenage boys babysit. I didn't know. And so, and by the way, if you Google, you just get 1,000 different, it's a landmine. So I would change one diaper. And I really was dude, I am one of those dads that really helps out. I'm going to be the other dad.
I am there. Yeah.
I'm a present husband. And my wife would teach a night class, and my kid would scream and scream and scream. And I didn't know that 9 months old are a bundle of nerves that just want mom. That's it. They don't care about you. And I didn't know that. I took it personal, and because I was immature and I didn't know. And so in real time, I learned one important thing. I'm not good here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. My wife didn't know how to explain it, and it was embarrassing for her to have to explain. Both of us are trying the best we can, and I knew this. One thing I can do for my family is go to work and make money. I can do that. And that was a place where I didn't feel like I was in a failure factory all day long. It's not an excuse, but it's just reality. It's just truth. And so I didn't know. I knew that I could see that look on my wife's face when I put the diaper on sideways, and I thought I'd crushed it. And it was just I'll do it because you don't know what you're doing. Or when I heated the pumped milk the wrong way, I didn't know. I didn't know. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I gave milk to my son right out of the fridge, and he was shivering. I didn't know you warmed it up. I didn't know. And so,
but here's the thing: I don't know those things either.
Right,
those.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, finish what you're saying, but
I knew that I could go to work. And what happened is, without meaning to, I went to do the best thing that I knew how to love my family. And I thought the greatest gift I could give my family was not being around. And then you see that, and I never had an affair or anything like that, but most affairs happen at work. Because you work on a team with somebody and y'all know the rules and you're working towards something, and he or she looks across the table and she's like, that's awesome. Or you're doing really great. And it feels good. And she laughs at your
The
jokes. or
validation that you're
that's
not
right.
getting
That's
at
right.
home. Yeah.
And so all I have to say is, I think it comes back to being able to say, hey, I don't know how to do this. And can you teach me? Yeah, of course. And oh my gosh, you should know how to do this. I'm embarrassed for you, but of course I can teach you. And we can go on about our day, right? And then you get to that scary question. Hey, what's enough? What is enough for us? And that's we do not have a culture designed psychology for the word enough.
Exactly. And it makes me think about this video that I just saw recently on TikTok, and I can't remember the creator. So if someone knows, definitely let me know. But she said she had just had a baby with her husband, and the husband was like doing something, like changing the diaper wrong or not heating up the bottle or doing, and she was like, here, just give him to me. Let me do it, which I am guilty of. I do that a lot with our kids. And her mom was there, and she said, don't become the baby expert. Don't become the expert of that child, because then you will be the toddler expert. And then you're going to be the, I know what they need for school expert. I know what their bedtime routine is expert. And so I get that the newborn phase, the biological need is mom. But I also think that it sets a precedent and a default that carries through other forms of childhood that is tough to escape.
Right.
So that's why sometimes this whole like break the glass ceiling, like women can do it, is really tough, because we're getting more opportunity in the workplace without any kind of help or support at home. And so it's additive. It's not subtractive. Yeah.
Well, and what I found in my house and in couples across the country, a lot of that work that's additive at home is not always. There are idiots, and this is the way it's going to be. And you're the wife. I don't care what job you're doing. You're going to get done with your law practice and come home and there's those morons out there. But quite often, I'll do the dishes like once every 2 weeks when I'm out of dishes completely. My wife can't physically or psychologically go to bed if there's a dish in the sink.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for her, this guy never helps. He's never available. He never vacuums. I'm like, dude, you vacuum once a month when like you keep getting dog hair on your suit, on your walking out. And so it's less about help, or it's more about like, dude, she'll get over it in the morning. Like, we're hanging out to watch TV tonight, me and my 4-year-old daughter, right?
Yeah.
And my wife's like, shh, if you stay up till midnight tonight to watch a TV show with our daughter, it's going to cost a week of our life because she's going to be a lunatic. And I'm like, yeah, that's a problem for future us. Let's do it. Because we're, you know what I mean? And so often the expectation, it's just pictures and words, right? We think in pictures, but we speak in words. We both say, hey, I need some help around here. And my picture of help is you're going to do the dishes every single night so that I can go to bed and there's never a dish in the sink. My idea of help is, dude, I will be there for you every 2 weeks. This is going to be the cleanest kitchen you've ever seen. And it's that extra step of saying, hey, what's your picture of this look like? What's your picture of bedtime routine? What does that look like to you? I didn't know kids have to bathe every night. I never bathed growing up, and somehow I lived, right? Like, and what does changing a diaper? It's going that extra step. It's not Hollywood. It's not sexy, but it's reality, and it's intentionality. Can I tell you what bedtime routine, that my picture of bedtime routine is? I would love that. I would love that.
It's one simple thing that could help so much, because whatever you said in the beginning of like characters that you cast in a movie that don't know your script, it's the same with your spouse. And over time, maybe you start to learn like a little bit of where they lean or what's important to them, like the dishes. But defining what's your version of help, or how are you seeing that I can assist and support you? You actually had something you posted on your Instagram that I'm going to pretend like I wrote it because it's really good. But it says, my wife is brilliant and capable. She doesn't need me to fix her. She needs me to love her. If she wants my advice, she will ask. If she needs me to defend, she will call me to war. But most of the time, she just needs me to be present and listen.
Yeah.
That so my husband and I had this the other day where I was, kind of in my head and complaining about, almost 3 months postpartum. I get that I'm being psychotic when I'm like, I can't believe I still have all this baby weight and I just want to be like my, pre-baby self. And he's like, Jess, like, you're beautiful. You are only 3 months, not even 3 months postpartum. You shouldn't be feeling this way. And I'm like,
Oh
right
man.
now?
I want to
Yeah, I
hug him.
know.
I
I'm
want to
like,
hug him.
yeah.
Woo!
I said, all
Hold
I
on.
need, like my version of my picture of what I need you to say right now is thank you for sacrificing your body for our family.
Mhm.
And he was like, thank you so much for telling me that because I feel that, but that's not something I thought that you needed to hear.
Mm.
So when it comes to tough conversations or something with your spouse, like that's a great tip of saying, how are you picturing this? Is there anything else that can help um, de-escalate when
Yeah.
things aren't on the same page?
I'll give you three things. The first one is, again, I'm overgeneralizing and overgendering. Okay. I know not every house works like this. This is just in the bell curve. When men get together, they often get together and complain about something and try to solve it. It's about looking at the manual. When my wife sits with her friends, she wants to be seen and heard and known. I don't care if my guy friends see and hear and know me. Let's solve this problem so we can get the car down the road. And so when my wife says, gosh, this guy at work won't shut up, he keeps being annoying, and my boss said I was going to get a raise and it's 6 months in, let's solve that problem. You need to go call that guy and that's not what she's asking. She knows how to do what she's doing. She's saying, do you see me and hear me? This sucks. Right. And it took me a long time to figure that. That note actually was a note that I wrote to myself. Right. It was a reminder because I'd screwed it up in my own house.
Yeah.
Okay. Almost all those little black posts I put on Instagram are just notes to myself when I blow it. I, I blew it. She is way smarter than me. She doesn't need me to solve this. She needs me just to sit on the couch. And vice versa. If a guy gets the courage and to say to his wife, like, I need help with something, that is a solution-oriented question. How can we solve this problem? That's number one. Number two is pictures and words. It's a thing that me and my wife ask every single solitary day of our life. What's your picture of tonight look like? What's your picture of this afternoon look like? What is your picture of, hey, we're going to your to your mom's for Thanksgiving? My picture of that is we're going to get there. I'm going to unload the car and I'm grabbing a fishing pole and going out to the pond. And she's like, oh, my picture is we're going to leave the stuff in the car and we're just going to sit on the couch and talk to old people. Done. I can do that. But what usually happens is I show up, I go to the back, I go fishing. She's like, my husband left me. And then we get in the car and I'm mad that she's mad that I'm mad that she's mad. Right. So what's your picture of this look like? And that happens with sex. What's your picture of tonight look like? Like, oh, I thought we were going to dress up and go. No, dude, we got 8 minutes. We got 8 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what's your picture of tonight look like? What's your picture of dinner look like? And then the third one comes from Dr. Brown, right? Brene Brown. And when you find yourself cross, there's an old counseling adage, never start the next sentence with the word you. You always start it with I. Because if I say, hey, you didn't show up, you were supposed to be whatever, you didn't, I'm under attack. I have to retaliate. We're at war now. If you say this, and this is from Dr. Brown, the story I'm choosing to make up about what's going on is you don't want to help with the dishes around the house. And that's you taking ownership. And that question is an invitation. That statement is an invitation. The story I'm making up is you don't like doing bedtime with the kids. The story I'm making up is you don't think I'm beautiful anymore after having 2 or 3 of your babies. The story I'm choosing to make up is you hate the fact that I'm trying to make it as a speaker and I'm not home all the time to do all these other things that your mom used to do. And that allows him to go, no, good God, I'm so happy that you're doing this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how, like it's an invitation versus building and building and building. And then you both end up in resentment.
What can, for women here listening, maybe the husband still, has those expectations of, okay, you do the laundry, you do these things, but yet the woman also has a career. How can the women on here invite a conversation with their partner of like, and maybe, you know, we've had a lot of women who have raised kids and they're, you know, in their 40s or 50s now. And they're like, look, my kids are out. I want a second lap at this.
Mhm.
How can they invite that conversation with their spouse where you can show your career aspirations and want that support from them?
I mean, I wish there was a hack or like a Hogwarts kind of trick
If
to
anyone has it, it's you.
No, it's my least favorite thing that I have to say, which is you have to choose reality. And here's what I know: secrets will kill you. Secrets will kill you, and secrets will kill a marriage. And so, if you have a dream and you are inching towards that dream, let me put here's a this is you can edit this out if you don't want to keep this part in. This happens tons. A guy wants to try something in the bedroom. He is way too terrified, scared, wimpy, whatever, to ask, to say it, put on the table. So it's just this constant hinting and shifting and kind of moving and kind of like, hey, look at this funny thing on Instagram. It's this, just what? Just ask what? You know what I mean? And so similarly, like that's like a funny thing. That's not funny. It actually happens all over the place. But the other side is, okay, I really have this dream of me being a speaker that can command $15,000 a speech, and I'm talking to 150 to 500 women at a pop, and I want to coach women, and I want that. And I'm 33, and I've got 2 young kids, and I feel like I'm running out of time, which, by the way, you're not. I didn't get on the radio until I was 41. But you feel like you're running out of time, and if you can't sit down with your partner during once a year during like a strategic planning, like how's our marriage going, like, or on a quarterly, let's get away for a couple of days, or one day, or half a day, or a morning, and say, hey, I've got this picture in my head, this dream. What's going to happen is you're going to try to do the kid stuff, you're going to try to do the wife stuff, and then you're going to try to like hint and inch towards this other stuff, and everything is not what you want it to be, and it's just a recipe for futility and frustration. And so the integrous thing to do is to put it on the table. And I say integrous. Some spouses can't hear it. They don't want to hear it. They don't care what your dream is 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Like, you got dishes to do, and you have to address that life that you're living, because that's reality. That's truth. And if you're with a partner that doesn't care about you or what you want to be, y'all need to have that conversation, because then the speaking gig or the writing career or the, I want to go back to law school, that's a proxy war for, I don't care what you want for your life. Your life exists to serve me. That has to be dealt with.
Yeah. I think about like when Jake and I met, I had just started my first company. And so one of the things that he loved about me was my tenacity and my ambition. And that was what we grew our relationship on. And so we never really had that fork in the road of like, I want to do more, because it's what he fell in love with. But I see a lot of women who come into my mic drop workshop start to gain some traction, and all of a sudden there's tension in the household because the roles are shifting. But one of the things that I think, whether you're man or woman listening, that you say, John, that I would love to wrap with is hose your boots off before you leave the office. So like, no matter what you're doing during the day, like, how do you hose it off before you get home? And I'll share a quick example that I can relate to with one of my friends who's also a speaker. And he said that he would speak, and you know the drill, like, you're traveling, you are just on as at your highest volume. You speak, and then there's the lunch after, and you're shaking hands, and you travel home. And I don't know about you, but I'm just gassed by the time I get back. I'm technically more introverted, and so being
Me too.
on
Yeah.
really, which is funny. I feel like there should be a study on that. Like, I've met a lot of introverted speakers, but
we're alone on stage too. Like, we
yeah,
control that. We're all by
that's
ourselves
true.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought of that. But, and she said one time when he got home, and you know, they have 2 kids, is, I wish you gave us half the energy that you give to a room full of strangers. And he was like, shit, you know, I didn't realize that like I was giving more of myself to the people who don't know me than to the people who do. And so I really took that to heart as well, because I can see that in myself. Oh, I just had a 3-day trip. I was on, I need a break. And it's like, no, walk in the door. It's showtime.
Can I
What do you
dump
have
that
to
on its
say about
head?
that?
Can I dump that
Yeah.
on its head a little bit?
Yeah.
Gosh, I hesitate to say this. My gut reaction to that is, and also those people wanted me there. And if me walking in the front door is a performance, you don't want me. You want the space I bring you. I'm a tool for you to have the day you want to have. And they want me there. They spent this much money, they paid for my flight, they paid for my hotel to get me there, and they are excited when I walk in. You are ready to, so there's a flip side to that, right? So I'll tell you this story. And maybe this would be a good way to end. I mean, I talk to you all day. Like you're one of the few people
I
I like
love
to,
it.
so we talk all day.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long this podcast goes, but
No, however long you want.
so I was working on my second book. I had COVID. I was sick. I had just had my family in town, and my whole family lives in Texas, and we packed up and left and moved to Nashville. And so when people come, they would stay for a whole week or 10 days for a long time. And almost always it's amazing, and I want them to stay longer. But this was just that one trip that was like cold, miserable holiday. Nobody wanted to be there that long. Everyone was wanting to go home after day 2 with their flights. And yeah, like it was just get out, everybody go. I was sick. I have my routine though, because I want to be all tough and blah, blah. So I was downstairs working out. I was trying to write a book on top of the show, on top of traveling, all this. It was chaos. And my manager called, and there was 2 speaking gigs that were out, and I wanted them so bad. They were going to be financial shapeshifters. They were the ones that like you've been doing really well, and then you cross your fingers, you're like, all right, we're going to move the rates up. We're going to, and they were all in. Whew. My manager calls. I'm downstairs in my basement, sick, trying to but I work out every day. I was just being an idiot. And he said, hey, you got a second? I need to talk to you about these 2 speaking gigs. And the way he said it, I was like, oh man. And I go, yeah, what's up? And he starts yelling, we got him. Right. So, and he's like, we got one. I'm 99% sure we got the other one. I start cheering. I start screaming in my house. I'm cheering like, yeah. So much so that my wife comes downstairs to the basement in our little home gym. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we got this speaking gig, and I'm pretty sure we got this one. And you know what this means for us and whatever. So my wife was Dr. Delony long before me. She's very wise. And when I get like that, I get pretty fired up. And she will, but she has something she's talking about. She'll back up. She waits till the smoke clears. And I'm a lot. And she didn't do that this time. This time she waded into my space, which is rare. And she said the following. She said, I am watching my husband die, and I'm watching him cheer the whole way. And I got so mad, Jess. I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, the pie chart that is how much I love you, and the pie piece inside that pie chart that is how much money you make, is full. She said, you can go do the speaking gig. I promised you when we got married, I would never tell you no. Go do whatever you want to do, travel across the country and do your thing. But don't you dare say this is for me or for the kids. This is for your ego. And Jess, I got hot. I was like, whoa, not fair, not cool. And then I got upset, and then it was back and forth. And then she turned to leave, and she said, hey, John, we have enough. She walked upstairs. We had just paid our house off. A teacher's kid and a cop's kid could never dream of that. We just paid the house off that we have out in the woods outside of Nashville. And she said, John, we have enough. And I remember leaving, and my words were, what the hell is enough? I didn't even, that word had never entered my mind. And so I tell you that to tell you, since that time, I am probably 5x busier than I was then. And my marriage is 100x better than it was. And here's the difference. We've just been intentional about the upcoming season. There's no such thing as balance. You know that. It's a myth. It's just nonsense. But kind of like I told you backstage, hey, we're about to enter into newborn, feeling terrible in your head and your own skin and not even recognizing yourself as you're getting into the shower, and me working. what must be true that we don't die? Like, let's set the bar low. And then in 3 months, 4 months, we're going to put a date on the calendar and see if we can relight that spark. But we're going to go into, and it's awesome. And we make a pact, we make peace. And so now we have a regular practice of once every 3 or 4 months, like what must be true for what's coming. And I tell you what, that intentionality, I didn't know this was an aphrodisiac for my wife, but it sure is. Like calendar time is magic. I didn't know that. But like just planning, like can she have a firm foundation? And her business has continued to grow. She started her own business and she's a writer. And now she gets to sit down and say, I have this dream. And cool, how are we going to make this thing happen? And it's what's best for what's coming. But you have to deal with those hard realities. This is just truth. This is truth.
And I think when you have those intentional planning sessions, the idea of what's enough is more visual than ego. Because you're like, okay, do I want to miss the Christmas party to go do this thing? It's like 4 months out, I can say, no, I don't really want to do that. But when you're in the moment and just like ping-ponging to anything that will like give you your free dinner just to get 15 minutes on stage, it doesn't work. And so,
but this many years later, I got a call for next Saturday. This is just last week. We just had a this and a this and a this. Can you come keynote this deal? It's in Nashville. It's like 9 minutes from my house. It's going to cost, it's $1 jillion. But I got a 8-year-old soccer game. I called my wife and I was like, hey, she will not know I wasn't there. And my wife was like, you're going to do the speaking gig because this is going to pay for it. Like, right. But it was about being intentional. And so it's an easy trade, but it's when you get unintentional and suddenly you're missing, your life is going by. This year, my wife, I skipped spring break. You know what I did on spring break? I don't know. I was working. My wife took the kids and they go to this boys ranch every year to work with some friends. And she walked back in the front door and my son started high school this year. And she walked back in, the kids were buzzing. They were just like, right. And she looked at me and she said, you got 4. I was like, what does that mean? And she said, you have 4 more spring breaks with him and he is gone. Ooh, yeah, I got
oh my gosh.
Like,
I just got it. Yeah, I'm about to start crying.
She said, you got 4. And I was like, oh, no. And I can't tell you just what I was doing that week. I don't know what was so important. It's not like I had a $200,000 speaking. No, I don't know what I was doing. I just wasn't there. And so all I have to say is it's a balance. It's a mess. It's a back and forth. It's an intentional, here's what season is coming. What's your picture of this season? Let's match those pictures and then we can make anything happen together.
So with that, what's your headline for our listeners? Like one thing you want these women to know about whether it's pursuing their dreams, keeping their relationships and family afloat. What's your headline?
Oh gosh, I'm the wordiest person you've probably ever had. I know, but I overtalk ever.
You can write it in one of your notes.
Yeah, I'll put a bunch of semicolons. Whatever success you have, you'll go with you, and it will not heal you. The most important part about that trip will be who is with you on the journey and who is with you when you're standing on that stage.
Boom.
That's it.
That's the headline. John, thank you so much. I'm so glad we met this year. And
thank you for being awesome.
Friend.
Yeah, thank you for being awesome. And I hope you feel better.
Thank you. I know I told John before this is the first time I've ever got COVID. I thought I was immune, but guess not. Still a good conversation.
Thanks for listening to Amplify. If you are a fan of the show, show us some podcast love by giving us a rating and review. And give us a follow at Mic Drop Workshop and at Jess Ekstrom. This episode was edited and produced by Earfluence, and I'm Jess Ekstrom, your host. Remember that you deserve the biggest stage, so let's find out how to get you there. I'll see you again soon.